reggae star left a man for dead in Dam Square. The victim has broken his silence with a confession that changes the entire story. I have the exclusive, unaired interview where he reveals the real reason he forgives but will never forget. Stay until the end to hear the audio evidence that contradicts the official narrative. Ricardo Papa Blake had spent years navigating the unpredictable tides of artist management and event promotion. He understood personalities, understood ego, understood danger. And he understood the complexity of working with Sakura Alcock, known to audiences across the world as reggae star Ja Cure, long before the Amsterdam tragedy unfolded. Blake's hesitation was not born from rumor. It came from experience. Every time Ja Cure came into the picture, something always tipped sideways. And yet, opportunity has a strange way of convincing even cautious men to step forward. When the prestigious Amsterdam venue Melkweg opened its doors to a potential booking, the possibility was too bright to ignore. The show could be successful. The fans could be satisfied. The reputation could rise. And in that fragile optimism, the first seed of disaster was planted. It began with a conversation stretched across borders, requests, assurances, agreements, 5,000 euros up front. A deal locked, a date confirmed, promotional materials already spreading through the European reggae community. But when Ja Cure learned what kind of stage he had been granted in Melkweg, a place whose name alone stirs reverence, his tone shifted. His fee must double, he insisted. 10,000 euros, no less. And if his band came, their payment must rise too. For Blake, this was no longer negotiation, it was pressure. He watched the dream of a clean transaction crumble into a scramble to salvage professionalism. To protect his own reputation, he agreed despite the financial strain. The band would be paid. Ja Cure would perform. The night would go on. And it did, but the echoes of applause died far quicker than anyone expected. When the music ended and the crowd dissipated into the Amsterdam night, the band that had agreed to 500 euros suddenly insisted on 1,500 instead. Blake had to choose, pay or face accusations, scandal, and the collapse of the entire event. He paid not just them, but Ja Cure's remaining deposit via bank transfer as well. Thousands of euros gone, in the name of keeping the peace. He believed that was the end of it, that tomorrow the storms would quiet. But demands do not always sleep just because the night is over. The persuasion came after sunrise. Ja Cure refused to accept the completed transfer. He wanted cash 500 euros immediately, then 2,000 euros the next morning for travel expenses. Blake refused. He had fulfilled the agreement, and he would not yield further to demands he saw as manipulation. Yet the refusal did not end the matter. Instead, it summoned the beginning of something far darker. Voice notes arrived on Blake's phone, filled with venom, filled with heat, filled with a fury that felt less like disappointment and more like a man preparing for confrontation. Blake kept them. He never used them against Ja Cure. But at that moment, they formed a silent warning that something was shifting. Even so, Blake chose calm. He took his young son out that day to run an errand, thinking distance from the argument might cool tensions. He breathed, walked, tried to untangle the emotions swirling around the failed negotiation. And later, when he walked toward Dam Square to meet Ja Cure and perhaps end the dispute with clarity, he had no sense of the blade waiting for him. The world around him seemed too normal for tragedy. Sunlight on stone, bicycles clattering by, tourists taking photos. Yet, standing behind two men was Ja Cure, silent, watchful. The man in front was someone Blake trusted enough to speak to directly. A man called Panko, whose bank account had received the money Blake transferred. Blake approached with the simple question that had gnawed at him. Why hadn't the payment been released? Why hadn't the tension been dissolved with transparency? He did not finish the sentence. A hand shot forward from between the two bodies. For a sliver of a second, the sunlight caught the tip of a blade. Then Ricardo Papa Blake felt a force slam into him, a pain so sharp it felt like the world folded inwards. Ja Cure's voice sliced through the chaos with a slur, an insult, a word loaded with hostility. Blake staggered, looking down as blood darkened his clothes. His body no longer felt like his own. It felt like a vessel cracking apart. People screamed. The pigeons scattered. Amsterdam froze. The doctors later told him the truth. Had the blade entered with even a whisper more force, it would have pierced his heart. He would have died in that square, surrounded by strangers and the echoes of a misunderstanding he never imagined could lead to chaos. Instead, he lived. And living meant suffering through injuries so severe that the details read like war wounds. The retroperitoneum torn. The stomach split open through both its front and back walls. Surgeons scrambling to close layer after layer of damage. A long, disfiguring scar branded into his abdomen like a permanent reminder that destiny had come within millimeters of ending him. But the physical pain was only one part of the story. The emotional weight, the disbelief, the betrayal, the realization that a colleague he helped had become the architect of his near death settled even deeper. Blake, a father, a businessman, a man who carried communities on his back, found himself lying in a hospital bed wondering how everything had spiraled so far. In the months that followed, speculation and accusations swirled across social media. Some fans insisted Ja Cure had been cheated, that Blake had withheld what was owed. Others believed the promoter had always acted with integrity. Few had access to the truth. Meanwhile, Blake kept silent. He released no voice notes. He sought no war. He allowed the legal process to unfold. At first, the lower court produced a verdict that avoided the heaviest blow. Ja Cure was found guilty, but not of premeditated attempted life-taking. He was sentenced to 6 years. The reggae world reacted with shock, confusion, and fierce debates. But prosecutors were not done. They appealed, bringing forward evidence that illuminated a more intentional chain of events. Voice notes sent hours before the fight, messages suggesting Ja Cure was not reacting impulsively, but acting from a place primed for chaos. When the Amsterdam Court of Appeal reviewed the case, the narrative shifted. The ruling struck with the force of thunder. Ja Cure was guilty of attempted life-taking. His sentence grew to 8 years and 4 months, his second time facing a prison term of this length. In addition, he was ordered to pay Ricardo Papa Blake 452 euros and 49 cents. To this day, not a cent has reached Blake's hands. Yet what stunned many was not the sentence, nor the legal victory, nor the visceral details of the fight. It was Blake's response. After years of silence, after enduring surgeries, pain that lingered long after the harm, and the emotional weight of public scrutiny, he finally stepped forward. He did not ask for vengeance. He did not shout for more punishment. He spoke instead with a calmness that felt impossible. "I forgive him," he said. Forgiveness, however, did not arrest a truth. Blake made it clear that the narrative claiming he robbed Ja Cure was false. The conflict began only when he refused new financial demands, demands beyond what had been agreed. That refusal, according to him, provoked the storm. He never owed the artist money. He never intended to cheat him. He simply drew a boundary that Ja Cure chose to rupture with a fight. Forgiving did not unwrite the trauma. Forgiving did not close the 12-centimeter abdomen scar he got. Forgiving did not bring back the sense of safety that evaporated the moment the blade entered him. But forgiveness allowed him to move differently through the world, not untouched, not healed, but unbroken. His lawyer, a man named Bowman, later addressed the public with a plea steeped in realism. He did not ask for sympathy. He did not defend or harm either man. Justice, he said, had been served. Yet justice and closure are not the same thing. For Ricardo Papa Blake, closure came only in fragments. In the way he rebuilt his steps, the way he learned to breathe through the pain, the way his voice carried calm instead of rage. The scar across his torso still whispers every night, reminding him of what almost happened to him, to his son who nearly watched his father die, to the dreams he built across continents. And in the quiet spaces between memory and healing lies the most haunting truth of all. Everything that happened to Ja Cure, he did it to himself. The reggae world will continue to debate, continue to defend its heroes, continue to dissect the tragedy as fans do. But the man who bled on the stones of Dam Square has offered his truth. A truth sharpened by betrayal but softened by forgiveness. A truth that refuses to demonize even the hand that held the knife. He survived the silence he carried for years. And ultimately, he survived the moment that could have destroyed his spirit. He forgave, but he will never forget. Now you've heard the full story. Where do you stand on forgiveness versus justice in this case? Share your thoughts on this complex situation in the comments below. Follow for more exclusive stories from behind the scenes of the music industry.